maintained for almost 2 years now that he's not going to be the nominee come September.
Right.
So I think you're going to get one debate out of Joe, and that's it. I predicted the Kristi Noem downfall, and I have been one of the foremost people talking about Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom is running a shadow campaign as we speak. He's got the name ID. Everybody knows who Gavin Newsom is. And although California is a disaster, America is a disaster under Joe Biden. So the Democrats, I don't think by swapping Joe out, I don't think they suffer any loss here. I think they only can gain from putting somebody in that's at least young and can speak.
All right, folks, it is Friday. I hope you enjoyed the week. We've got a great way to take you into the weekend. Tommy Lahren is here. I'm going to share with you a behind-the-scenes story about debates with President Trump that I think you'll like. And then we will get into it with Tommy. But before I do that, I think I've told you before, I had the coolest Mother's Day gift because I took this picture of me and had it made into a painting. And you can do the same if you want to. The folks at Paint Your Life will take a picture, multiple pictures, and they combine them, it doesn't matter. And they will make an unbelievably meaningful, unique gift for you. Now, Mother's Day's in the rearview mirror. I won Mother's Day. My brother and sister, sorry, I was a winner. But now they're going to probably try to think what they can do. And you can too, because Father's Day is coming up. But again, it's a birthday. It's that special moment. It doesn't matter because the Paint Your Life can do so much for you that is different than any other gift you'll give. And if you text Spicer to 87204, they'll start you on that journey. It's real easy and real quick how they get you started. You upload the photos, you pick the type you want, acrylic, charcoal, watercolor, you name it. Then you pick your frame, you pick the artist, and their work is guaranteed. They'll send you a video to show you along the way how it's going. And if you text Spicer to 87204, the folks at Paint Your Life will give you 20% off and free shipping. Kaboom! Gift done. Maybe even a wedding. It would actually make a really cool wedding gift the more I think about it, right? No one else is going to get that. They're going on your registry. This is something they're always going to walk by and say, you know who gave that to us? You did. So go check out the folks at Paint Your Life by texting Spicer to 87204 and become the giver of the best gifts. Message and data rates apply. All right. I want to tell you an interesting story about the first debate, and it wasn't even a debate, it was a town hall that I dealt with Trump on. And I have it in my first book. It was really cool. We were dealing with this thing, the Commander-in-Chief Forum, Matt Lauer, NBC was hosting it. I had been tasked to go negotiate the details. And this is in my first book. It's page 94 of the briefing. I had learned that Donald Trump would like to manage the details when it came to the media. With the deal done, NBC invited me and a Clinton campaign representative to meet aboard the Intrepid, which is where the debate would happen, for a coin toss to determine which candidate would be interviewed first. Whatever you do, Sean, Donald Trump told me, make sure I go first. I'll do my best. On the way out of Trump Tower, I ran into Eric Trump. Should I call heads or tails? Eric didn't hesitate. Heads, he said. The coin toss was in an interior below deck office of the Intrepid. Knowing I'd be held accountable, I brought a newly campaign aide to whatever to observe this thing. Waiting for us were cameras to memorialize the event. We were offered the choice of heads or tails. Deborah Turnus, who's running the NBC program at the time, simply asked what I wanted. I said that heads would be Hillary, tails meant Trump. When I got done, I said to Steve Bannon, we've got some good news and bad news. We lost the coin toss, but we get to go first. And that was my first experience with Trump. I say that because Trump really got involved in some of the details. And in light of the debate this week, I do think it's going to be interesting how he handles the debates. Anyway, tonight we've got this big giveaway. I've mentioned this before. I've got 3 of the original Make America Great hats. You get to choose which one. If the comment that you make in the YouTube comment section gets the most engagement. So leave a comment. Encourage people to weigh in on it, and then you get to choose which of the original 2016 Make America Great hats you want. So that's our giveaway tonight. We've got a great conversation with Tommy coming up, but I want to tell you because something unexpected could happen at any time. You know that. That's why the people at 4Patriots have you taken care of. And if you go to 4patriots.com/Spicer, you will be ready in a time of emergency. It could be a power outage. It could be a natural disaster. It could be an attack on our power grid. We don't know. We have all had something happen where the power goes out. And sometimes it's an hour. Sometimes it's several hours. In the instance that I was dealing with several years back, it was multiple days. And I've told you this, guys, before. I had a power generator that was filled with gas, and we always had to run out, fill it up. It would last for a few hours. We had cords coming in the house everywhere. We had to keep it outside because of the fumes and the noise. No longer the case with the Patriot Power Generator 2000X. There's no noise, it's portable, and it charges on solar panels that come free with it. You can bring it in your house. It charges everything from phones to devices to refrigerators. You will not regret being ready with the Patriot Power Generator 2000X. You can go to 4patriots.com to get it. Trust me when I tell you that this is going to be a lifesaver when you need it most. Do not wait. Go now. Check it out. 4patriots.com/Spicer. It's portable, so you will be the hero. Trust me. Check it out now. 4patriots.com/Spicer. All right. You guys know Tomi Lahren. She always brings it. She is fearless. She is the host of Tomi Lahren is Fearless on the Outkick. She is a Fox News contributor, and she loves to weigh in on things. And by the way, she's going to remind us of a prediction she made last time. Without further ado, Tomi Lahren. Tomi, welcome back to the show. Always great to hear from you.
It's great to talk to you. And, I told this to you a few minutes ago, but on the last podcast we did together, I did warn you about the eventual implosion of Kristi Noem. I knew she would do or say something in the coming months that would really end her political career. I didn't know exactly what it would be, but it happened. So I would just like to say I told you so.
No, I'm actually more interested if you can tell me tomorrow's Powerball numbers, because I feel like you've gotten very prophetic now. I'm just wondering if you can help with lottery tickets and anything else.
Listen, I am not a psychic. I just know Kristi Noem. So I can't help you with the Powerball. I can just help you with South Dakota politicians, because that's an area that I happen to know pretty well.
So you brought this up. I wasn't even going to start there, but your commentary on it before was great. And I want to just... a lot of people came to her defense and said, well, this is just life on a farm and in rural America. You were very clear that that's not the case, though.
Yeah, that really aggravates me. First of all, let's talk about this, Sean. There are a lot of people that live on the coast of this country or live in big cities that already think that people that live in South Dakota are hicks or rednecks or hillbillies or backward. And then you've got our governor going out there and saying exactly that. Oh, no, this is what it's like in South Dakota. We shoot our dogs because they're overzealous hunting dogs or because they get a hold of a neighbor's chicken. That's not the way it goes in rural America. That's not standard in South Dakota. And what really agitates me about this is that in a number of interviews, she has changed her story. At first in the book, it was, this is an overzealous hunting dog who wanted to play, got a hold of the neighbor's chickens, kind of snipped at me. And then it went to, oh, it was attacking livestock and my family members. That's not what you wrote in your book. That's not how the story started. You're trying to make this dog seem more vicious because you know how bad this sounds. So she agitates me to no end. I think she's disingenuous, fake, and phony. And I'm just so glad that the world is now seeing what we in South Dakota have been seeing for many years, and that is the real true character of Kristi Noem.
The thing that I harped on was, if you believe, as she claimed, that this was a South Dakota thing, that this is how we act, then you need to explain it to folks like me and say, this is what, you can't just have a one-off comment and say, so I killed it. If you actually believe it was a danger to your kids, then say that. To your point, the story kept evolving. And I always tell people that when I left the White House, I said I wasn't going to write a book. And then I ultimately did write a book. And the reason I wrote it is because I wanted to explain so many of the situations and scenarios and incidents that I didn't feel the mainstream media came across. And so it was incumbent on me to explain those situations and give the context that I thought the mainstream left-wing media lacked in them. And when I looked at how she did this book, to your point, it was, your story keeps changing, because suddenly it was attacking my family. And I'm like, well, you didn't say that. Why wouldn't you have included that? Because that would have been a perfectly good explanation for why you wanted to protect your family, but you didn't say it. And it's like the Kim Jong-un story, which is, she says she met the guy. Then when she gets asked about it, she says, I don't describe my meetings. Well, no. The meeting didn't happen. No one's asking you to give private information. It just didn't exist.
And again, she says she's not going to talk about her meetings with foreign leaders. She's not going to address it. Well, you did, though, because you wrote about it and you lied about it. So you're willing to write about something that didn't happen, but then you're not going to talk about the correction that had to be issued. And it also really irritates me that she's trying to blame this on a ghostwriter. There are a lot of people that have ghostwriters The ghostwriter, for the most part, doesn't just go rogue and write things. I mean, you have to review every single thing that's written, whether you're the writer or somebody else is the writer. You go over it and you go over it line by line by line to make sure everything's accurate, especially if you are a sitting politician. So all of her justifications, I'm sorry, BS flag.
Well, by the way, she read it. She read the audio version. I mean, at some point, you can't claim the ghostwriter wrote it when you said it and you're going, that's my voice. All right. I think Kristi, and by the way, Jen Psaki had this great incident this week where she wrote about Joe Biden checking his watch at that Dover ceremony when we brought back the remains of the individuals who were killed in Afghanistan. And she got caught and then just said, okay, in future versions, I'm going to delete that story. Same thing. I was like, what do you mean? Just it's a lie. It's actually fact checkable when it occurred. She's saying it didn't occur and the media made this up. And it's like, there is a timeline, a video of it when it happened. And again, I look and go, after all of this, like, how did you, that was a self-inflicted wound. The beautiful thing about it is, of course, Jen Psaki has all these people in the media that call it, a publisher's mistake, and we're going to be revising it. Whereas Kristi Noem, gets her political career destroyed for it.
Yeah, I see the double standard there, but it's going to be hard for me to go ahead and defend Kristi Noem here because Jen Psaki made a mistake, Kristi Noem made a mistake. But it's hard for me, and I saw the justification from other people as well, saying like, oh, but the media went so hard after Kristi Noem. Well, Kristi Noem delivered really, really bad interviews on the topic so far as to blame Stuart Varney for having a sham interview.
Out of him about how tough he is and how well he is doing.
Did you bring up
yes,
the dog?
enough,
with Trump?
Stuart.
With Trump. Did you
this
bring
interview
up the dog
is
with Trump?
ridiculous, what you were doing right now.
I don't
so
think
you
so.
need to stop. It is.
Okay.
It is.
We'll
Let's
stop.
talk about some real topics that Americans care about.
I'm afraid we're out of time.
Oh, I mean, listen, you can go after a lot of people. Don't you dare go after Stuart Varney. All right, that is where I draw the line.
Okay, yeah, that's an interesting line you have. I like Stuart Varney. I've always gotten along with him well. I just have never drawn a line. Now I may have to reconsider. I may need a new line. I may be like, this is the Tommy Lahren line. You dare go after Stuart Varney. All right, but before we move on, because you said something at the beginning that I want to be clear on. She's a 2-term governor. In terms of South Dakota, everyone kept saying this story had been floating around. She told it at fundraisers. Is the story or how she handled it, when you say that it's the end of her political career, does that mean she can't run for the Senate, that South Dakotans are done with her, or did this just go over like a lead balloon in South Dakota?
People in South Dakota don't like Kristi Noem as much as the country thinks people in South Dakota like Kristi Noem. The eastern part of the state, Sioux Falls, for those that are familiar, she's got a lot of money and a lot of backing in that part of the state. It also happens to be the more liberal part of the state. South Dakota is a deep red state. But as far as South Dakota goes, that part of the state is certainly more liberal. There's a lot of money in that part of the state. It's actually really disconnected and detached from actual agriculture ranching part of South Dakota. But people in South Dakota don't actually like Kristi Noem that much. If people say, oh, well, she got reelected, she's your governor, she was your representative. Yeah, there's not a lot of options in South Dakota. Nobody wants to run for anything in South Dakota. It's not like there's people that are just signing up wanting to be a politician. Our state is not like that. We have a shortage of good people who are willing to run because the decent people in South Dakota don't want to be in politics. So I really want to clear that up too. People in South Dakota have not loved Kristi Noem for a very long time. I would say since back in 2010, when I was her intern and she was newly elected as this kind of Tea Party Republican. People don't love Kristi Noem there. They really never have. We just don't have a lot of options.
I want to talk to you about the big sort of political story of the week, which is, I think, these debates. I think how it evolved has been fascinating. So let me just ask you this. Are you surprised, and do you think it's a good thing that these debates are happening? And we'll break down the specifics, but just in general, what is your reaction to how it happened?
I think Joe Biden didn't have a choice. I think at some point, he already said when he did that interview with Howard Stern, he had already said that he would do it. So he backed himself into a corner. He has to do something. He has to show that he is energized and vibrant because he's been fading and slipping away so badly. But I have said all day long, I think you might get one debate out of him, the June debate. I think that will probably happen. But I have maintained for almost 2 years now that he's not going to be the nominee come September. So I think you're going to get one debate out of Joe, and that's it.
Okay, because I do want to get to your tweet. That's coming next. So we're going to slowly roll that way. But let's break this down for a second. I don't even know what the right word. Trump keeps saying his initial reaction was Biden can't put two sentences together. Joe Biden is the worst debater I've ever faced. I got to be honest with you. I don't think this is a good strategy. Lowering the bar to the point where if Biden shows up, it's a win is not a good tactic. And I think that this is a problem. I think Biden, if I were Trump, I'd, don't help him. Don't create a strategy where Biden's bar is so low that merely by responding to a question, he's going to be seen as competent. And in fact, I would argue Trump should tactically start to talk about Joe Biden's years in government and how he's debated for 50 years and he's got so much experience.
That's an interesting point. I hadn't thought about that because I too share the sentiment that Joe Biden can't put sentences together. So this is going to be a clown show any way you look at it. I would like to see a drug test beforehand. I want to know what they're going to shoot Biden up with to get him through this. How are they going to keep him upright? A lot of the Biden surrogates out there saying, oh, well, he did so well in 2020. It's been 4 years. His decline has been steep since then. I mean, he looks like a young man compared to what he is now. So I think you're right, though. Let's not talk about it's a win if he just shows up and puts a sentence together. Let's actually put the pressure on for him to really perform, and then we'll just have to wait and watch how it goes. But I say a drug test. I think anybody can maybe make it work for 60 to 90 minutes, but unhelped, undrugged, I'm not sure for Joe.
So Trump had been egging him on for months. I'll debate him anywhere, anytime. I want to do this. And then Biden's the one who lays out the criteria, right? I want no audience. I want it to be at a friendly, liberal-leaning network. And microphones have to be turned off if you're not talking. I mean, you might as well have let Jill be the moderator. So CNN says, great, we're going to moderate the first one, and Trump accepts. ABC says we'll do the September one. Trump accepts. I just, tactically speaking, I get why Trump did it, right? But did he, wrote the book, The Art of the Deal, was this a good deal?
Trump is never going to get a good deal, though. We all know this. So I think for Donald Trump, he's trying to put out there, like he said, anytime, anywhere, any day, I'll do it. It's not going to be fair to me, but I'll show up. And I think that Joe actually looks worse coming out with all of these stipulations because it shows that he's scared. He can't have an audience. What are you afraid to have an audience for? Is it because you're afraid that the pro-Palestinian little terrorists are going to show up? Like you don't do any other events for that reason and because you can't energize an audience? So all these stipulations just make Joe look weak. And I think Donald Trump saying, hey, listen, it's going to be rigged against me no matter what, but I'll still show up. I think that shows a lot of strength from Donald Trump. So I'm okay with it.
The funny thing is, I don't know if you saw this the other day. There's this event at the White House. He's introducing someone. I can't even remember who it is. And he points her out and says, stand up. I love your dress. Da-da-da-da, turn around.
Director of my Office of Science and Technology. Where's she already? Where is she? Stand up, kid. I like that dress. Let him see your gown.
It was the creepiest thing. And I'm like, dude, maybe that's why they didn't want an audience, because his team was like, dude, we don't need you calling out people in the audience and making them twirl. Maybe that's it. He's just afraid of what he'll do to the audience and he'll like oogle them or something. He really is afraid of interacting with people.
Yeah, I think his staff is more afraid of him interacting with people. I think that they keep him on a very short leash for good reason. But this was the same stipulation that Gavin Newsom had when debating Governor Ron DeSantis. He didn't want an audience. What is it with these Democrats not wanting an audience? Because the rest of the liberals in this country are always like, look at me, I'm a queer for Palestine, I have green hair, I'm going on a hunger strike. But yet our elected Democrats, they don't want an audience to observe them in real time. I think that's a little weird. There's something more to that.
I think it's because they know their policies suck. I mean, to your point, the Palestinian protesters are going to come out there. The people who are struggling economically are going to come out. The people who've been victims of crime or suffering because of the impact of immigration. I mean, I don't think Biden has anything going for him, right? He can lie about him. I mean, he doesn't want to get fact checked on inflation. I would be afraid of an audience because I'm not sure who actually he appeals to, except maybe family members.
And where's the excitement for Joe Biden? There's none. Right. They have to pay for excitement from those little influencer twerps that they have tweeting out the talking points. But he's got nobody excited about him. Donald Trump, love him or hate him, and a lot of people hate him, but people feel strongly about Donald Trump. People want to watch Donald Trump. They want to be around Donald Trump. Even if they hate Donald Trump, they want to be around him. He evokes energy. Joe Biden doesn't have that. So Donald Trump, any room he goes into, it's going to be somewhat of a performance. Joe can't perform, so he doesn't want anybody around to witness it. But they're all cowards. None of them actually want to stand in front of the American people.
All right, so let me just finish my rant on this debate thing by asking about the moderators. CNN announced earlier this week, Jake Tapper and Dana Bash are going to be the moderators. Here's my problem with this. Again, and Trump, look, I think Trump can take on anybody. This is not a question of whether or not Trump can handle everyone. He's gone into the lion's den before. He did a CNN town hall. He's done one on NBC. He can handle it. I'm not getting at that. It's just, it's like 2 against 1, 3 against 1. This is from Jake Tapper's Wikipedia page. In 1992, Tapper served as campaign press secretary for Democratic congressional candidate Marjorie Margolis-Mavinsky, Pennsylvania 13, who, by the way, is Chelsea Clinton's mother-in-law, and later served as her congressional press secretary. Tapper also worked for Handgun Control, Inc., now the Brady Center to Prevent Gun Violence. He is a Democrat liberal staffer, right? That's a fact. And to some degree, this is the prism in which the questions and the reactions are going to be handled. And again, it's not a question of whether Donald Trump can handle it or not. It's a question of whether it makes sense to allow your political future to have the scale tilted so far against you when the American people are watching.
I just don't know if there's any other option. I mean, are they going to be fair to Trump if he goes and tries to negotiate a better deal? Are they going to allow him to do so? I don't think so. I think it is so stacked against him. I think at this point, he's just accepting the fact that it's going to be unfair and he's going to fight anyway. I mean, look at the poor man has been stuck in a courtroom, held hostage, unconstitutional gag order. I mean, I think at this point, he has accepted that it's against him. And he's going to show up anyway, because what's his alternative? To say, I'm not going to do it? He's drummed this up. He can't just say, oh, if the terms aren't my terms, that I'm not going to do it, because they'll go against him for that too. So he doesn't have a lot of options, but the one thing that he does have is he does have the stamina and the ability to speak. And I think he knows that, and he knows that Joe doesn't have that. So just him going up there and being able to perform, to me, that makes him a winner. I don't expect Joe's going to be able to do the same. It would be a miracle if he is.
Yeah, I actually am excited to watch this. And I've already put both of them on my calendar because this is going to be bigger than the convention. I mean, this is going to draw a worldwide audience. The expectations are so high for both. And I honestly, I've said this before this week. I just hope that Trump drafts. He hangs back. If I were him, I'd say, my name is Donald Trump. Here's what I did for 4 years. Joe, the rest of the 50 minutes are yours. Let him fall on his own weight. Don't get in his way. That first debate that they had in 2020, it was unseemly. And I think Trump has a better record. And when he talks about the issues, when he reminds people about what he did to secure America, when he reminds people about the economy and how good it was under him, when he reminds people how peaceful the world is, it benefits him and it contrasts him with Biden. When he gets in the mud with him, it just doesn't look good.
I agree, but I think this is a whole different ball game now because you've got two records, to your point, to compare. So beforehand, Joe Biden had been vice president. He'd been in politics his whole life, but he wasn't the president. He didn't have a presidential record that he had to defend. Now he does. And now it's clear as day between the two of them. And if Joe Biden's going to get up there and repeat that he came into office with 9% inflation and other lies, I would hope that the moderators would fact check him on that. I'm not going to hold my breath. But the American people, they're not able to look at this guy as untested anymore. He's been tested and he's failed. So I think you're right. Just put the two records up against one another. And Donald Trump shouldn't rely on character assassinations or trying to make himself seem like, the better guy or the more likable guy. Just throw that out the window, run on your record, and you'll win.
That's it. Exactly. That's it. When he talks about policy and his record, he wins every day of the week. The one issue that worries me, and the only issue that I think that the Democrats have, because you remember, Joe Biden can't talk about immigration. He can't talk about China. He can't talk about foreign policy because it's been a disaster all over the world. And he certainly can't talk, he can talk about the economy. He just has to lie about it and know that CNN, just like it did at the town hall the other night with Aaron Burnett, will give him a pass. But Trump will call him out. The only thing that I think he'll talk about, and I want you to give me your opinion on this, because I, as a dude, worry about this. I worry that he's going to focus all of his energy on the issue of abortion and try to make Donald Trump make the issue anathema to women. Tell me that I'm over concerned about this. Give me something to feel good about on this issue.
I can't, because I'm concerned about this issue, not in the debate. I'm concerned about this issue for our country, because there are some Republicans on the very religious right that will not let this go. And I know that they're going to get mad at me for saying this, but they're willing to keep losing elections over this issue. It's not a winning issue. Donald Trump has been smart about this, though. He's gotten a little bit tongue-tied on it since, but when he came out and said this is a states issue at this point, I agree with the Dobbs decision. We're sending it to the states, and that's where I stand on it. I think that was a smart move. He needs to just continue to reiterate that, because Democrats, they stick to their position. And even when you ask them, like, how far is too far, they won't actually answer you. Gavin Newsom, again, going back to that debate with Governor Ron DeSantis, when Sean asked him over and over again, how many weeks is too many weeks? What do you actually support? He wouldn't answer. And Donald Trump needs to play that game. He needs to say, I'm not talking about jailing women. I'm not talking about jailing doctors. I'm telling you, it's a states issue. It needs to go to the states. And he needs to just hold that line and don't go any further. When he starts talking about, okay, well, then maybe women should be penalized, that's when he gets too far into the weeds. Don't play the game. Stick with that point and don't budge on it.
So you agree with me that he needs to not only state that position about states, but put Biden on defense, right? That's where I think Republicans have missed this. Make them talk about what they're for. Are you for abortion to the moment of birth? Because that's what Governor Ralph Northam was for. That's what your party fights for. Do you agree, though, that that's where I think that Trump needs to put him on defense?
Yeah, I think just saying how far is too far and trying to get him to answer. I think that Joe is too feeble to actually navigate that. He's not a Gavin Newsom. So I think that that's a great point to be made. But I think that the more Donald Trump just gives a simple, slick answer on this, and the more that he makes Joe Biden have to explain, I think that that is definitely the better strategy than Trump sitting there having to explain his entire position on it. Just don't get into it, because you're going to make people upset on both sides and you're not going to win the issue.
All right. We're talking about dogs, aren't we? And Kristi Noem, no better reminder than someone who does great work with animals. I'm talking not just dogs, cats, horses. You know my friend Leo Grillo. He runs and founded Delta Rescue, and you can see the great work that Leo Grillo does at deltarescue.org. We're talking in the show right now about some things that weren't good that happened to animals. But if you need a dog rescued, then Delta Rescue is your place, because it's a sanctuary for life, not a shelter. It takes care of dogs, cats, horses, etc., that need veterinary care, that need nutritional care. And it's all because Leo Grillo founded Delta Rescue, saw a need and filled it. But Leo can't do it alone. He relies on people like me and you to help keep this going. So if you can make a 5, 10, 50, 100,000, 5,000, 10,000, 20, he'll take any amount, trust me. That's what's going to keep Delta Rescue going. And when you look at the videos at deltarescue.org, you see what I'm talking about. More importantly, if we can help keep Delta Rescue's mission going and enduring for decades, that's even better. Go to the estate planning kit, download it. Just take a look at it. Take a look at it tonight or over this weekend and see about the amazing work and see if you can make Delta Rescue part of your estate. deltarescue.org to see the great work and that estate planning kit. Now back to the conversation. I promised I'd get to this. You've name-checked Gavin Newsom a few times. You tweeted out the other day that Biden won't be the nominee, Gavin Newsom will be. You've said it before. I've heard you say it. You're doubling down now. Why are you, walk me through why you are so confident that this is going to happen. And then let's talk about when.
Well, actually, to harken back to when you were on my show talking about it, you educated me on the entire process, the ins and outs of it. So now when people ask me, when do I think it's going to happen? I tell them what you told me, that it'd probably happen pretty shortly after the convention. They're not going to try to pull some stunt at the convention. That would be a little too messy. They're going to wait until after. Joe Biden's going to have some kind of a health emergency, which is not unbelievable. And that's when they're going to make the swap. And again, the polls are not good for Joe. Joe's cognitive ability not good for Joe. Joe's record not good for Joe. There is no downside to swapping Joe out. I can't think of one. What is it? Oh, he doesn't have the name ID. Gavin Newsom doesn't have the name ID. Gavin Newsom is running a shadow campaign as we speak. He's got the name ID. Everybody knows who Gavin Newsom is. And although California is a disaster, America is a disaster under Joe Biden. So the Democrats, I don't think by swapping Joe out, I don't think they suffer any loss here. I think they only can gain from putting somebody in that's at least young and can speak. It's going to be Gavin.
Okay, the last part of what you just said is important because I think you're right. They can only gain. Gavin Newsom may have a horrible record in California, but man, is that guy slick. I mean, he dresses well. He speaks well. He's sort of like a better looking Bill Clinton, right? You listen to him. I feel like I'm getting sold like he's a salesman every time. And it's like every once in a while I have to go like snap myself out of it. Go, what are you doing? Like, don't listen to this guy. He's slick. I don't think there's any other way around it. I worry that if they do switch it out with him, he's going to, in a very short, compressed window, try to sell people that, hey, I'm not Joe Biden. Remember, I can put a sentence together. I'm not the scary guy that Trump is. I'm a reasonable, good-looking guy that wears, quarter zips. I feel like I worry more about him for the reasons you suggest. How, if that happens, how does that change the dynamic of the race, in your opinion?
To me, that's my biggest fear. It honestly is. It's my biggest fear. I think Donald Trump can beat Joe Biden. I wish I could tell you that Donald Trump could beat Gavin Newsom, but I'm very worried because Gavin Newsom, if he comes in that late in the game, he's going to have all the advantage because he's going to be able to say, hey, listen, I like Joe Biden. I believe in a lot of his policies, but I can do better. And I admit that there's some things Democrats have done that have not helped this country, but I have a new plan. I have a new idea. And he's going to look like the bright new shiny thing. And he's going to be likable and he's going to look good. And he's going to hit on the gun infringements that he keeps tweeting out, his constitutional amendment. He's going to talk about abortion, which he already is, climate change. He's going to say California is the 5th largest economy in the world. And people will buy it. And that worries me. It really does. But as far as the Democrats go, it's an excellent strategy on their part because they have nothing to lose. Going with Joe means that you're electing Kamala Harris. Nobody wants Kamala Harris. Gavin Newsom, you got to go there. And they're going to. I just firmly believe they're going to.
The thing that this is where when you're listening to this show right now and you're saying there's no way, A, it's going to happen, or B, that people will buy into Newsom. The thing that I find fascinating about Newsom is since he was San Francisco's mayor, he has been touting a plan to solve homelessness, and he's never been called out. Every year he rolls out a plan to solve homelessness as if it's a new thing. And no one's ever said to him, but didn't you roll that out last year? Every year he's got a new angle on it. And he says, this year we're going to solve homelessness in 18 months and we're going to do this. And then the next year he's like, I've got a new 14-month plan and everybody covers it. And why I bring this up is the point that you're making. He is able to wrap things up and sell people snake oil in a way that they go, oh, that sounds like a really good plan. And no one's saying, wait a second, you sold us this crap last year under a whole different banner. So I do share your concern because I think that there's a reason that dum-dums keep electing a guy like that governor because he can sell crap.
Yeah, literally. There's a lot of it in California. Crap maps, as a matter of fact, in San Francisco. They now have a beer for bums program where they're giving alcoholic homeless people alcohol because it's safer that way. We know they have, of course, the open air drug markets, people with needles sticking out of their arms. California is a disaster. But when I tell people, they go, oh, nobody will vote for Gavin Newsom. If people are willing to vote for Joe Biden, they are willing to vote for Gavin Newsom.
It's not just that if you got bought into this, like there's enough people that are that gullible. I hate to say it. I mean, that's just a fact, because if you could look at the record now and say to yourself, I don't know who I'm voting for. Every time I have this conversation with people, I go, what do you care about in life? And they go, well, safety and security. I go, okay, well, how was it under Trump? How is it under Biden? Yeah, but I'm like, this is not, it's like walking in and seeing two products in a market. One costs $1,000, one costs $100. The one that's $100, gives you all your vitamins. It's great. The other one like causes cancer. And people are like, I just don't know which one I want to buy. And you're like, well, one's 10 times more expensive and causes cancer. The other one's healthy and a lot cheaper. And you're like, I got to think about this a little. And that's what I think sometimes is happening in our elections, where the choice should be so easy. And yet there are a lot of people who buy into a bunch of BS. And that's the concern I share with you about someone like Gavin Newsom, because the compressed time schedule, if this happens in September, you're talking about 8 weeks. And there's not going to be the time to do the opposition research. They're going to go out there. They'll spin it that he's great. Everybody will talk about how awesome he is. The media will give him a free ride. There'll be no attempts to vet him. It's sort of like the basement strategy, but just different. And that's what is going to happen with Gavin. It'll all be about how exciting and new this is, as opposed to his record in California and how many times he's tried to solve homelessness.
He will be the shiny new toy, and people will be willing to give him a chance. And I mark my words, that is what they will say. Let's give him a chance. I hate Donald Trump so much. Let's just give this guy a chance because he's young and he's got ideas. Let's give him a chance. And that is what they will say. So it doesn't matter how little time they have. He's already campaigning. He's been campaigning for at least the last 8 months. The machine is already in place.
We have to save democracy. It's at stake. That's what's at stake, democracy and world peace. That's also at stake. I mean, this nebulous idea of the Democrats creating issues, because they can't campaign on issues. So it's like, we're for democracy. You're down in Nashville. There's a big fundraiser coming up with a bunch of folks for RFK. I am starting to become concerned about RFK's pull in a lot of states. From what you're picking up, is there an attraction to RFK for people? You mentioned people who might not like, they call them double haters in the polling world. People who don't like Biden, don't like Trump. Do you get a sense that people are finding an attractiveness in the RFK campaign?
I think he represents something different. So for the people that are just sick of the same old, he represents that for them. I think he's more of a spoiler for Joe than he is for Trump. But I would also say this, if everything we just talked about matters and comes into play, RFK is not going to matter. Because if it ends up being Gavin Newsom, RFK is not a player in this because he's not the shiny new thing anymore. Gavin is the shiny new thing. So I think right now he's getting some interest. I actually have on my show, I have his running mate on my show. So I'm excited to talk to her. And I mean, she's willing to do interviews and he's willing to do interviews, which is great. I think that's great for the conversation. But I think he's more of maybe a sideshow. I don't think in the scheme of things, if everything that I think is going to happen, I don't think he really matters much.
I am worried about who he takes from in some of these key states. And I think too many Trump people, because of his vaccine stance, find him attractive. And that's what worries me, is at his core, he is a left-wing progressive. He's a Kennedy, for goodness sake. Like, I don't know why this is tough for people on the conservative side to recognize that, yes, on one or two issues, he's good. But on the rest of it, he is a progressive left-wing Democrat.
Yeah, and I don't think that there are a lot of conservatives that are going to be swayed. You might have the people that voted for, Rand Paul, that kind of like following that people just love, like the Rand Paul or the Ron Paul, thing. You might get some of those, but I don't think the numbers are just not there. I think it's more of an overhyped thing. I think people like his ads, people like him, but I just think it's a sideshow. I don't think that it's a spoiler for Donald Trump, more so for Joe. But again, I just don't think it matters because I don't think we've got Joe for much longer. So I think that RFK is kind of just getting the press while he's got the press, and it's interesting, but I don't think there's a there.
So you mentioned it, but if his running mate Shanahan and then RFK want to come on the Tommy show, are you you're fearless. I know that. But are you want them on? You want to hear from them. You want to explain them to.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Oh, I think we always need to have those conversations. There's nobody that I wouldn't have on my show. I mean, really, unless somebody is going to threaten my physical safety, I'll talk to anyone anytime. I appreciate it because it's pulling teeth to get liberals to talk to conservatives. Conservatives, I'll go on anybody's show. I've sat down with Trevor Noah, with Chelsea Handler, with Bill Maher, with the ladies of The View. I mean, you name it, I've sat down with them. I don't have a problem with that. Getting liberals or more liberal-minded folks to come on conservative platforms, that's hard. So I'll always take it. I think we need more conversation.
Interesting. Who just since we're going down this rabbit hole, who would be the dream guest for you that you think on the left that you would love to have the conversation with?
Well, there's a few. There's a few that I just think would be interesting. I think it would be really interesting to have somebody like a Cardi B because she's tried to get political in the past. She was a Bernie Sanders supporter, but she's also talked about taxes. She seems like she's just, maybe a dumb rapper, but I think there's more there. I think there's actually a layer of intelligence there or a layer of maybe relatability, authenticity that she has that I think is interesting. I don't think she's dumb. I think she might be ill-informed on certain things, but I don't think she's dumb. So I would love to have that conversation. Obviously, that would be huge for me anyway. But and again, it would probably never happen. Another one that would never, ever happen, but I think would be so interesting. I just want to be in the same room with Hillary Clinton. That I just want for myself. Because I don't believe she's real. And I would like to just see her in the flesh.
That's a fascinating, you don't think she's real.
No.
In the sense that you think that she, meaning that she's fake or that she just is an amalgamation of a bunch of other people?
I think she is AI generated. I just don't believe this woman. I know that you've probably been around her.
The funny thing is, it's a long story. I've seen her in person in the early 90s when Bill Clinton, it's a long story that I don't want to get into. Not that I can't, but in the 1992 primaries in New Hampshire, I can't remember it per se, but I know I was in the room with her. And then I posted this the other day. We chased her around when I was at the RNC with a giant furry squirrel when she was on her book tour. I didn't interact with her, but I know that my staff did. Which again, I posted on Instagram the other day. We literally chased her around with a giant furry squirrel.
Hello, Mr. Squirrel. How are you? I know you've been following me around, and while you're in between your gigs, I wanted you to get a copy of my book. I hope that you will make the hard choice and read my book. But you bring a smile to a lot of people's face. Thank you, Mr. Squirrel.
I think it would be interesting. I would love to have that conversation with her just because I would like to say, you talk about women, you talk about disgust for Donald Trump, and yet you defended your husband and you attacked these women who made credible charges against her. How do you square that? I would just like to hear that defense.
I would also like to hear her talk about the integrity of women's sports because she talks about women's rights. She posts about abortion on a daily basis because I follow her across platforms. I know this. And she talks about women's rights and human rights, but she doesn't talk about women having, the integrity of their sports maintained. But I'll tell you a fun thing that I do that just gives me joy. I do follow Hillary Clinton on Instagram. And every time she posts something, she likes to post a lot of photos too of her in different situations throughout the years. And I like to comment jail or should be in jail on every single one of her posts. And that just brings me a little bit of joy.
Okay. Well, this is a great place to end. Let's go into the weekend with a lot of joy, and maybe we can post something. I just want to know if she'll ever respond to you. That's the kind of thing. But now that we know what brings you joy, that's good enough. That's a great place to end. Tomi, thanks for being with us. Always appreciate it.
Good to see you as always. And again, I predicted the Kristi Noem downfall, and I have been one of the foremost people talking about Gavin Newsom. So I just want to reiterate that. If it ends up being Gavin Newsom, and all these people are going to flood in and say, "Oh, we knew it was going to be Gavin."
No, I will give due credit.
I've been saying it for
credit to the Noem, credit to the Newsom when it happens. And I read, the funny thing is, after you got a lot of people on Twitter that said if it happens, we're going to make sure that everybody knows where it came from. Tommy Lahren, she's fearless and she predicts things. All right. I appreciate you being with us. Have a great weekend. You bet.
Thanks so much, Sean.
All right, folks, great conversation with Tommy. Thanks for being here. Next week, we are going to do an in-depth special on dark money, billions of it flooding our policy and our politics. We will break it down like no one ever before. Hit that notification button, subscribe on YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, Podcast, Apple Podcast, iHeart, I don't care, wherever. And have a great weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.